International trade used to be quiet, a behind-the-scenes process that most people rarely thought about. But President Trump changed that, thrusting trade policy into the national spotlight and making it a central issue in his administration. He's made tariffs, taxes on imports, his main weapon, using them as a tool to shake up the global economic order. Trump's approach is aggressive, a standard 15% tariff on many goods, targeting a wide range of products from steel to electronics. And he doesn't stop there, threatening to raise tariffs as high as 50% for countries that refuse to bend in tough negotiations. This puts intense pressure on other countries to make new deals he claims will benefit America, forcing them to reconsider long-standing agreements. It's a sharp break from past presidents, aiming to rewrite global trade rules and challenge the status quo that's existed for decades. The administration is applying this strategy worldwide, not just to rivals but to close allies, straining even the most established partnerships. The goal: make it costly for others to sell in the US, forcing them to the negotiating table and giving America more leverage. It's a high-stakes, controversial tactic that impacts businesses, workers, and consumers everywhere, creating winners and losers across the economy. The White House argues the short-term pain is worth the long-term gain, promising that these tough measures will ultimately strengthen the US economy. But the uncertainty is real, as countries scramble to respond before looming deadlines and markets react to every new announcement. The Trump team believes the old rules were unfair to the US, blaming past policies for lost jobs and declining industries. By using tariffs, they're seeking leverage to force change, hoping to bring back manufacturing and restore American competitiveness. This has created global tension and economic uncertainty, with ripple effects felt in boardrooms and households around the world. The approach is powerful but risky. One wrong move could trigger a trade war or economic downturn. It's not just about economics, it's about reshaping America's role in the world, redefining alliances and rivalries on a global scale. Now, this strategy is being tested with America's closest neighbor, Canada, a country deeply tied to the US through trade and history. The result? A major dispute that could redefine the US-Canada relationship, with both sides digging in for a prolonged standoff. The world is watching to see who blinks first, as the stakes for global trade have never been higher. Canada isn't alone. Trump's tariffs are shaking up trade talks worldwide, sending shockwaves through global markets and alliances. The European Union faces tense negotiations, with a real risk of a trade war if no deal is reached. Leaders are scrambling to protect their economies and jobs. The EU has its own tariffs ready, targeting over $100 billion in US goods, from motorcycles to orange juice, aiming to hit American industries where it hurts. Japan's talks are more positive, with promises of massive investment in the US, but disagreements remain over key sectors like agriculture and technology. Even close allies find these deals complex and fraught with tension, as old partnerships are tested by new policies. American companies are feeling the impact: higher costs for parts and materials, squeezed profits, and higher prices for consumers at the checkout. Big names like General Motors and Keurig Dr. Pepper say tariffs are hurting them, forcing tough decisions on jobs and investment. Some US industries like steel benefit from protection, but others lose out, facing layoffs and uncertainty. The policy creates winners and losers at home, dividing communities and industries. The administration insists protecting key industries is vital for national security, arguing it's a matter of economic independence. But the cost is real. Americans pay more at the store, and families feel the pinch in their everyday lives. The debate rages: is the pain worth the gain? Experts, politicians, and citizens are deeply divided. For some, tariffs mean survival. For others, it's a burden that threatens their future. The global strategy is clear: pressure everyone, force new deals, and reshape the rules of international trade. The world is adapting, retaliating, and recalculating, as every nation tries to protect its own interests. The stakes are high, and the outcome is uncertain. Billions of dollars and millions of jobs hang in the balance. America's new trade playbook is changing the rules for everyone, rewriting decades of economic cooperation. The question remains: who will come out on top in this high-stakes global contest? The latest US-Canada trade fight isn't about steel or dairy, it's about the internet. In a world where digital commerce is booming, the battleground has shifted from traditional goods to the virtual marketplace, setting the stage for a new kind of economic conflict. Canada planned a digital services tax, targeting big tech companies like Google, Amazon, and Meta. These companies dominate the online landscape, generating billions in revenue from Canadian users every year. The tax, 3% on revenue earned in Canada, was aimed at making tech giants pay their fair share. For years, critics argued these firms contributed little to national coffers despite their massive profits. Canada expected to collect over $7 billion in 5 years, funding public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. The government framed it as a step toward economic justice. Many countries are considering similar taxes, seeing tech firms as undertaxed. The global conversation about digital taxation is growing louder, with governments seeking new ways to regulate the digital economy. The US saw this as a direct attack on American companies. Washington argued that the tax unfairly singled out its most successful tech giants. The Trump administration called it unfair and protectionist, designed to hit US firms. Officials warned of possible retaliation if Canada moved forward. The dispute quickly became a major sticking point in broader trade talks. Negotiations grew tense as both sides refused to back down. The US refused to discuss other issues while the tax was on the table, effectively stalling progress on unrelated trade matters. For Trump, defending America's tech sector was non-negotiable. The administration saw tech as a pillar of US economic strength and global influence. The digital tax became a red line, an issue neither side was willing to compromise on. Canada saw it as fairness, the US saw it as a threat. The two allies found themselves at odds over the future of digital regulation. The standoff escalated, with both sides digging in. Rhetoric intensified, and the world took notice. The world watched as two allies clashed over the future of digital commerce, wondering which side would blink first. Would Canada hold firm, or would US pressure force a retreat? The stakes were high for both countries and for the global tech industry. The answer would shape not just this dispute, but the future of tech taxation worldwide. Other nations watched closely, ready to follow whichever path emerged victorious. The stage was set for a showdown, one that would define the rules of the digital age for years to come. President Trump's response to Canada's digital tax was immediate and forceful. He halted all trade negotiations with Canada, sending a clear message: the tax was a deal-breaker. The US-Canada trade relationship is massive, so this move created shockwaves. Trump publicly condemned the tax, framing it as an attack on the US. The dispute became about national pride and economic defense, not just tax policy. Canada was put in a tough spot, accused of targeting its closest ally. The ultimatum was simple: drop the tax or talks stay frozen. Businesses on both sides of the border faced uncertainty and potential disruption. Trump's tactic was classic confrontational, public, and uncompromising. He was willing to risk a major rift to protect US interests. For the administration, this was about setting a global precedent. If Canada succeeded, others might follow. The White House wanted to send a warning: don't target American tech. The pressure was intense, and the world was watching. The message: America will fight back hard. The stakes for Canada were enormous. The next move was theirs. Under intense US pressure, Canada made a dramatic U-turn. Just hours before the digital tax was set to begin, the government canceled it. The risk of a trade war with the US outweighed the potential revenue. The main goal: restart stalled trade talks and protect Canada's economy. The US is Canada's top trading partner. Stability is essential. Dropping the tax was a tough political retreat for Prime Minister Carney's government. The policy was popular at home, but the economic stakes were too high. The decision showed the power the US holds over Canadian policy. Canada traded its digital tax for a chance at a vital trade deal. The move was pragmatic, if painful. The urgency was clear. A fight with the US was one Canada couldn't win. The reversal set the stage for renewed negotiations. The cost of defiance had become too great. The White House wasted no time declaring victory after Canada scrapped the tax. Officials credited Trump's tough stance for forcing Canada's hand. The message: the president stood firm, and Canada caved. Administration leaders praised the outcome as proof that America first works. The story was simple. Trump applied pressure and he got results. The win was used to bolster Trump's image as a master negotiator. The administration sent a warning to other countries: target US tech and you'll face the same pressure. The Canadian case became a global example. The White House focused on the result, not the risks or complexities. For Trump, it was a clear-cut win. America was targeted, America won. The narrative was crafted for maximum political impact. The world took note of the US's willingness to use its economic power. The administration's message, "Don't challenge American interests." In Canada, the government's reversal sparked fierce debate. Critics called it a humiliating climb down, blaming poor planning and naivety. They argued the government promised fairness but folded under US pressure. For some, it was a sign of weak leadership and a lack of strategy. Business groups, however, welcomed the move. They feared a trade war and higher costs for Canadian consumers. For them, protecting the US trade relationship was the top priority. The decision was seen as pragmatic, safeguarding jobs and economic stability. The episode exposed deep divisions over how to handle US pressure. Some saw retreat, others saw realism. The debate over Canada's best path forward continues. With the digital tax gone, trade talks between the US and Canada resumed. Both sides set an ambitious deadline to reach a new deal. Businesses welcomed the return to stability and predictability. The focus shifted to other complex issues: agriculture, manufacturing, labor. The July deadline left little time for compromise. Negotiators faced pressure to deliver a win for both leaders. The renewed talks marked a shift from confrontation to cooperation. After high tension, both governments aimed to rebuild trust. A successful deal would reaffirm the vital US-Canada partnership. The outcome would shape the economic future for both countries. The world watched as the two allies tried to find common ground. The digital tax dispute revealed a new reality in US-Canada relations. The US used its economic power to force a Canadian policy reversal. Even close allies aren't immune to America's aggressive tactics. The episode sent a warning to other nations. Resisting US demands can be costly. Canada enters new talks having already made a major concession. The US comes in with a clear victory. The dynamic has shifted, and future negotiations will reflect that. The partnership remains vital, but trust has been tested. The memory of this standoff will linger. The new trade deal could help repair the relationship, but the era of easy cooperation is over. The US-Canada story has entered a more unpredictable chapter.